Okay, so are you ready for this one? We're taking a deep dive into a case that'll have you questioning like everything you think you know about truth and perception.
Hmm.
It's a wild one.
Yeah, sounds intense.
Yeah, we've got all sorts of sources for this one: news reports, court transcripts, even a detective's personal notes.
Wow. Okay.
And it all comes together to paint this picture of this really tense summer day on the Apple River in Wisconsin back in 2022. Like imagine this, you're floating down a river, the air's thick with humidity, the smell of beer hangs in the air, everything seems chill, right?
Right.
Then suddenly, boom, there's this lost phone, some kind of confrontation pops off, and then a fatal stabbing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so our deep dive today, right, it's all about how this like seemingly ordinary day just explodes into violence, right?
How did this happen?
How does a lost phone lead to that? It's crazy. Exactly. So we're going to unpack the events that led to the stabbing of Carlos by Nikolai Kovac. But even more than that, we're going to analyze like all the different perspectives and how they shaped the narrative, the impact of video evidence, and how messy the whole idea of self-defense really is.
I mean, that's what's so fascinating about these kinds of cases, right? There are so many layers.
Totally. And this isn't just some isolated incident either. Like this case really forces us to think about how we judge people, how easily those judgments can be swayed.
It's like our brains are just hardwired to make these snap decisions, right? Based on just like scraps of information.
Yeah, for sure. And the source material here, like right off the bat, throws us into this world of these contrasting characters, these murky motives, these like, and almost like caricatures. Like on one hand, you have Nikolai Kova. He's described as this gaunt specter with these hollow eyes, like he's almost out of place in this like chill summer scene.
It's like the author was already setting him up as an outsider, right? Like from the very beginning.
Yeah, totally. And then contrast that with this group of teenagers. They're like bursting with life and energy. They're enjoying their summer break. You've got Carlos, who's like the life of the party. And Jeff, who's filming everything with his phone.
Yeah.
Capturing all those carefree moments before things go sideways.
Man, it's like those early descriptions can totally influence how we see things, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And that's what's so interesting. Like, if you were on that river with all those teenagers and you saw Nikolai coming toward you, how would you react?
I mean, you'd probably be a little wary, right? At least a little bit.
For sure. I mean, our brains are just primed to jump to conclusions. And the teenagers, they're full of adrenaline, probably got some preconceived notions about, I don't know, older guys. They see Nikolai, this older man, clearly not part of their group, and immediately label him as some kind of threat.
And then you add in the fact that Nikolai doesn't really say anything when they confront him. Like, that just makes things worse.
Oh, totally. He just feeds into their suspicion by not engaging. And here's the thing, right? We know, as the readers, that Nikolai's got a knife hidden in his swim trunks. But the teenagers, they have no clue. So you've got this situation that's just like a powder keg ready to blow.
Yeah. Talk about dramatic irony.
Totally. And we see all this tension play out in the transcripts, right? The teenagers' words are just like dripping with fear and anger. But then Nikolai, when he finally gives his testimony, claims that he felt like he was the one being threatened, like he was trapped.
Yeah, it's this clash of perspectives. It's just like palpable,
It's so tense. And then it all just explodes when Carlos lunges at Nikolai, accusing him of, like, hurting someone.
And then that's when the video that Jeff is taking becomes like the most important piece of evidence.
Well, yeah, for sure. What do you think about that, though? Like, do you think the video actually clears things up?
Well, yeah, I mean, eyewitness accounts, we know, are notoriously unreliable. So the video gives us this like seeming objective view of what went down, right? But even then, the truth is still, I don't know, kind of murky.
Yeah, you'd think video evidence would be the end of the story.
Right. Like case closed.
But it doesn't really give us the whole picture. Like, the video shows the shove, the fall, that flash of the knife, and then Carlos collapsing into the water, which by that point is stained with blood. It's hard to watch, but, it's just a fragment of the story. So, like, how do we even begin to reconcile these different stories with what we see in the video?
Well, that's the thing, right? The video is just a snapshot. It can't tell us what happened before that moment. All those little things, all that fear, all the misunderstandings that led to the fight. And it definitely can't tell us what the people involved were thinking or feeling, what's going on in their heads.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like this stark reminder that even when we think we have objective evidence, people can still see it in totally different ways.
Exactly. And the jury did end up finding Nikolai guilty of homicide, sentencing him to 20 years. But even that, doesn't change how complicated the whole situation was.
Yeah, it's not like a clean ending.
Not at all. You see the devastation that Carlos's mother goes through. I mean, she lost her son.
Yeah.
And then there's Jeff, who's now stuck with those images in his head forever. He was just a kid trying to capture a fun day, and now he's basically an accidental documentarian of a tragedy.
It's heavy stuff. And it's interesting how the author keeps bringing up the river,
Right.
right? Like, it's not just the setting. The river almost becomes like another character, like it's watching all of this unfold.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think about that? Like, why keep coming back to the river? Talk about how the water is stained, and then that line, they say the water cleanses liars, it only remembers. It's chilling.
Well, the river's usually a symbol of life, right? Like renewal and cleansing.
Yeah.
But here, it's like this terrifying reminder of the violence, like it's stained by what happened.
It's like the river is saying this will never be washed away.
Yeah, and it also emphasizes how far-reaching the effects of the violence are. Like, it goes way beyond the people who are actually involved. It's like some things just leave a permanent mark on us, on the world itself.
And that's where the detective's choice to keep that Polaroid of Carlos really hits hard,
Yeah.
He kept this photo of Carlos before the stabbing, this picture of pure joy. It's like this powerful reminder that before all the chaos and violence, there was a life being lived, a life full of potential, just cut tragically short.
Yeah, that really sticks with you.
That's like a punch to the gut. It reminds us that this isn't just some legal case or a news story. Like, this is about real people whose lives were shattered in a single moment.
I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from this deep dive, right? It makes us really think about how perception and reality can just clash, how the lines between victim and perpetrator can get blurry, and how do we even begin to understand things like justice when the truth itself is so hard to pin down?
Yeah, it's a tough question. But it's a question we need to keep asking ourselves. So as you go about your day, think about how you make judgments about people. Think about how all the information you take in, from the news, from your own life, all of it, shapes how you see the world.
It's a good reminder to stay critical, to look deeper.
Yeah, for sure. Because sometimes, like we see in this case, the truth is way more complicated than it seems on the surface.
Yeah, sometimes those currents run deep.
Deeper than we